How's it going, everyone? I am Carlo, and as always, I'm here with my cousin Dylan. We are counting down our top 50 games of all time, and we have reached the finale, the big one here, numbers 10 through 1. So this is our 2022 edition. We did this last year, and this is a sort of updated list. Very excited to do this. I want to ask you how many, you said you mentioned in the last video you have one new game in here?
One game that wasn't on my top 50 all last year, and it is on my top 10 now, which is pretty wild.
Okay, yeah, same for me. I have one otherwise. I don't know about you. I didn't have a ton of movement in my top 5. Decent amount from 10 to 6.
I will say that the games might be familiar, but I've got some movement.
Okay.
I think there's going to be some shock waves through the...
Awesome. I'm excited to see these. And just because I'll say real quick, because these top 50 videos tend to be some very, popular videos on our channel and on any channel on YouTube. Obviously, people love seeing these kinds of lists. Why don't you tell the folks at home who might be seeing our All You Can Board for the first time what kind of videos we do? Just a quick recap of some.
All kinds. We do list videos. We do how to plays. We do buyer's guides. We do games that are upcoming that we're excited about. We cover Marvel Champions. We cover Keyforge. We cover a little bit of everything. Anything that interests us as gamers, we cover and hope that it's going to bring some interest to all of you out there and just bring more people into the hobby, or if you're already in the hobby, find other games that'll keep you in the hobby and that might hook you. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of content, and I think that's one of the things we love about doing this is that we feel like we have a little bit of something for everyone. You don't have to be into Marvel Champions, you don't have to watch our Marvel Champions videos, but that content is there for the niche group that really loves Marvel Champions.
Yeah.
In the same way that we cover whether it's worker placement games or whether it's tile laying games, there's always going to be something that maybe doesn't resonate with one specific person or one specific group, but we cover so much that we kind of bring a whole bunch of different groups together onto our channel, into our community.
Yeah.
And like our Discord community, which if you have not seen our channel before or watched many of our videos and you are liking our content, there is a Discord community. You can find the link below in the description. There is a whole bunch of great people in there talking about not only board games, but like photography and video games and movies and books and all this kind of stuff. So there's we host a board game arena tournaments on there all the time that you can, it's free to join, just join up. So we'd love to have you. Feel free to join in there and join the conversation.
It's an awesome community to chat with other people who love board games. So
yeah, they're great.
All right, I think without further ado, I'm probably just going to throw it over to you to kick us off with number 10 here.
Okay, number 10, here we go. Number 10, down from number 8 last year, is Lost Cities. Still holding on to the top 10 spot there. It's still an absolutely fantastic game. I played it less this year compared to the previous year when I played so much of it on Board Game Arena, especially.
Just climbing the ranked ladder on Board Game Arena.
Yeah, exactly. I'm surprised I didn't Lost Cities myself out. But yeah, it's a testament to how great the game is. You've talked about already. It's a very simple 2-player card game that on the surface, I remember when I first sat down with Lost Cities, the first thing I thought was, that's it, that's the game. It just seems like, okay, you're just putting things in ascending order.
Numbers and colors.
Is so simple, but it's really, you have to play it once or twice to all of a sudden be like, oh, hang on a second. It's not about how I'm putting these cards in sequence. It's how I'm managing my hand. That is the game. And when you realize that, and when you realize that so many times you just don't want to take your turn in Lost Cities, and somehow that is the best feature about this game, it's addictive. And it's even more addictive when you get good at it and you start to realize the strategies and you're playing with other people that are good to start to find ways to win, or to especially with the best of 3 system, to say, okay, how do I come back from having gone down so much on game 1? I have to be more aggressive. I have to put more of those handshake cards down, or play the long game and hold on to cards, hoping I draw one and things like that. So it's just a great game. It's going to take a long time for it to ever even potentially drop off my top 50. I don't think it ever will. Like I mentioned when we talked about Enchanted Plumes, I could see eventually Enchanted Plumes maybe replacing it in some respects, but this is also just a classic for me. I love it. I'm going to continue to play it. I will never turn down a game of it.
Yeah, incredible game. I think it was in my low 30s, and without a doubt, one of the greatest 2-player only games ever designed, especially something that just almost entirely uses cards. Yeah, amazing game. Happy to see it stuck in your top 10.
It did, yeah.
Okay, number 10 for me is, it dropped 3 spots from number 7 last year, and that is Arboretum.
Oh, okay.
So I think you had this in the 20s or something, 28 or somewhere around there, I think?
I think it was high. I think it was 40s.
Or maybe it was 40s, yeah.
Something like
or
30s,
lower
30, 40s, yeah.
So yeah, it's an amazing game, one that I don't think I'll ever get tired of playing, and actually has a lot of shared DNA with a game like Lost Cities. because of the hand management. I think Lost Cities is much better as the 2-player game. So if you haven't heard of either of these, or you're trying to you played primarily 2-player, I would definitely say Lost Cities is the better one. But I love Arboretum as a 3, or especially as a 4-player game. Yeah. One of the meanest, most cutthroat games around, in disguise, because it just has some pretty art with some nice looking trees, and you just think it's going to be a relaxing, inviting game until you realize that you're only going to score points if the other players around the table aren't trying to screw you over by holding the cards in their hand. They basically deprive you of scoring the points you want. So it's a game of not only hand management, but also of this mysterious end game scoring and this reveal of cards to see who's going to get points or who might not get points. Everything on your board that you've worked at the whole game in front of you, building this tableau, this beautiful arboretum of trees, might be worth nothing because you didn't hold the proper cards you needed to score. It's just a ruthless game where, similar to Lost Cities, like you said it perfectly, you don't want to take your turn. You wish you could pass. You don't want to play a card. You don't want to discard anything because it's a shared discard pile, similar to Lost Cities, where players can pick up from there. Yep. Incredible game. I don't think it'll ever end up moving any higher on my list. I think this might be the last year that it stays in my top 10, and I think it's just as a result of other games that, to me, feel more addictive and highly replayable that have just moved slightly ahead of it. My opinion of the game hasn't changed. I'd say the only thing that maybe holds it back a little bit for me these days is that a lot of the time when I end up playing it, I'm playing with someone who either is playing it for the first time or hasn't played it in a while, and the way that the scoring works and the laying the paths of your trees, it's the same thing as Azul, where someone during the scoring always goes, "Oh, I didn't realize that." Oh, and so we feel like we never quite get the ideal play of Arboretum, right. But I want to get to the point where we're playing it like at least 10 times a year or whatever, and people know what they're doing, and you just, I don't know. Anyways, incredible game, and it's so simple, just numbers and colors on some cards, beautiful artwork, but just a ruthless game.
Yeah.
You got to be okay playing games that make you just feel bad, and you're going to, I've scored 0 points many times, but I have a great time every time I play the game regardless.
Yeah, I've talked about it already, but it's a great game. The only major negative I have with it is just that it isn't a good 2-player game. It's too bad that at such a popular player count that I can't rely on that to be like a good experience. For sure. But that, again, at 3 and 4, just one of the most ruthless, deceptively ruthless games that I've ever played. And I haven't played in a while, but I really need to go back to it because it probably would have been higher if I had played it more this year because it is so phenomenal.
Yeah,
so.
And it's right from turn 1 all the way to the end. Every turn is excruciating. Yeah, such a good game. Arboretum.
Number 9 for me was 10 last year. Actually moved up a spot, and that is Azul. I played a bunch of Azul this year, and not only because we did our big all 4 Azul games, which if you haven't checked out, we compare all 4 Azul versions.
Azul Showdown.
Go check that out. But also, I would even beyond that. I played a ton of Azul. I introduced it to people. I played it on Board Game Arena. I played it competitively on Board Game Arena for the first time, whereas I feel like I didn't ever get really ruthless with Azul, and I kind of always played a little more casual because I was introducing it a lot, whereas now on Board Game Arena, it took me playing one random game on Board Game Arena and getting thrashed to be like, okay, hang on. I
don't know what I'm doing.
I need to hone, this is a top 10 game for me, I need to hone my skills a little bit. And I think that helped me appreciate it, the depth of Azul a little bit more. There's for such a simple game of just, here's the tiles available, take everything of a single color and add it to your board, and it's going to transition to your main grid. It's a simple rule set, but because tiles can not fit on your board and go to the floor, that's where this ruthless aspect comes out, and that's where it's so... Yes, sometimes you get lost in trying to piece out, okay, if I take this and they take that and they take this, then I'll end up with this. You can sometimes get lost in that. But in general, I found that that's never held it back from being a really good experience to me. And when I've played with people who have played it a lot, that usually goes quicker because people understand that strategy and it's not something that's holding up the experience. But Azul is just a really, really great game. It's beautiful to look at on top of that. I said it before, the only thing holding it back from being one of the premier gateway games, in my opinion, is the barrier of the scoring, which, again, it's not that the scoring is super, or not the scoring, but the transition of tile, I guess scoring and the transition of the tiles over to the main grid. It's not that it's super complicated, it's just that as a gateway thing for someone who's not played board games, that is always a hurdle. If it wasn't for
that... And everything else about the game is so simple that feels a bit,
Yeah, but I mean, there's a reason it spawned so many other versions, regardless of whether or not they're better or worse. People think that they're better or worse. A game only spawns that many versions and reprints and redesigns and everything when it is a very, monumental, successful game in an industry that is usually very niche or is very niche, right? So, yeah, phenomenal game. It's actually, like I said, it's moved up a spot. So that's a testament to it. That is Azul.
Awesome. Yeah, for anyone who missed it, I think I had this in the 40s on my list. Amazing game. Don't think it'll ever leave my collection either. And yeah. What more can you say about Azul, really?
Nothing.
Exactly. So I won't. Number 9 is a game that moved also similar to Arboretum, also moved down 3 spots. This was at number 6, right ahead of Arboretum last year as well. That is Battle Line. And it's another one that much of my reasoning for Arboretum dropping 3 spots applies to this as well. Just that basically there are just other games that have moved ahead of it. It hasn't, lessened in my opinion. Actually, I previously thought Battle Line was going to be a little higher on the list. It has the hand management thing going on that Arboretum has, where you basically play a card and draw a card. That's your turn, and the whole game is basically managing your hand of cards, but also which cards or which deck do you want to draw from. Do you want to draw from the main deck of cards that just has your regular battle cards, or do you want to dip into the deck of tactics cards and now you only have 6 battle cards instead, but now you have this tactics card that might help you get back in the game or win this battle. The basic idea of the game, it's 2-player only card game, and you basically are fighting 9 little battles that are each sort of a 3-on-3 poker hand. So think of it as you're going to end up each playing potentially up to 3 cards on either side of each sort of flag to try and win that battle, and the highest thing you can get is like a 3 or like a royal flush, basically, or straight flush, like an 8, 9, 10 of the same color. Or 3 of a kind is also good. There's a flush, whatever, all these kinds of things. So, but you're just playing a card and drawing a card, and you can play it to a row or a flag where you already have 1 or 2 cards, or 0. Or you can start in a new one where there's no cards. So every new row that you play a card, you're revealing more information about what might be in your hand. And there's a simplicity of this game that I think gets overlooked a lot, because there's a lot of these other lane battlers, and I know a lot of people will say like, I played Rift Force or Radlands or is it Airland and Sea or whatever, and they just say like, well, Battle Line's way too simple, it's just numbers and colors. But I think the thing that gets overlooked a lot is that in a lot of these other games, the value on the card, when a card has an ability or text on it, usually those cards can only be played maybe 1 or 2 ways, or like it has an inherent value that is attached to it. And in Battle Line, a purple 3 or whatever, like the value depends on what else you have and what else is out on the board, and whether you play it or hold it in your hand, because a purple 3 in a 3 of a kind versus a purple 3 in a run of 3, 4, 5 straight is different, and based on, again, proving what cards are or aren't out there and which battles you can or can't win, you're trying to win either 3 flags in a row or any 5 on the map. It's so simple, but I've played this game probably upwards of 30 or 40 times now. Every person I show it to loves it. In terms of 2-player only games, it's still for me the pinnacle of that. A game I'll never get tired of, will never sell, and I think, the artwork, sometimes I know for you that's a big barrier, and I know a lot of people look at it and just say like it just looks boring, it looks drab. It's got one of those old classic GMT boxes, but if you can get past that, try this game. I assure you, like there's a lot of good stuff in here, and it's very replayable.
Yeah. Honestly, I really enjoyed every session I've had with it. I still remember the first time I played it at the cabin, and because I remember because I won and I beat you.
Oh yeah, nice.
But it was
people tend to beat me every time I teach them this game. I always lose when I teach them.
That means you're a really good teacher.
Maybe I'll take it as a compliment.
But yeah, for me, it's usually I can get over a look of a game being drab. Like look at Ethnos, right? But for some reason on this one, I don't know what it is, but the style that is of it, or that is drab or whatever, it really is a barrier for me. Like I need something, and to be honest, it's almost the same thing as why I never even wanted to play the original Libertalia. Something about that also didn't speak to me, and then look at what this colorful version did, right? So I would love to see, I know you said there is another version.
Battle Line Medieval, yeah.
Right,
and then there's also Shot and Totten, which is not quite the same game. It's very
close.
Similar and has a more colorful, inviting artwork kind of thing.
So maybe I should try those versions and and all close together. And
I'm going to custom make you either a Marvel or Final Fantasy version of Battle Line, and then you're finally going to appreciate this game. Which one would you prefer, Final Fantasy or Marvel?
Final Fantasy. Marvel. Like I like Marvel, but like it's the Marvel movies that I'm really into, and Marvel Champions. Speaking of which, number 8, down from number 6 last year, Marvel Champions.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So only dropped 2 spots, and really again nothing to do with anything to do with quality or anything like that. Just competition. For me, it's funny though. The one thing I am noticing, this is so personal to me, or exclusive to me, in this, sorry, I shouldn't say exclusive, there's other content creators on YouTube that do Marvel Champions, but I mean like a unique problem is that there is just so much Marvel Champions content coming out every year that because I'm playing so much of it and it's not often most of it is play testing and trying, and I'm having fun, but it's so much thinking like, okay, that's interesting, or that's bad what this hero does, or whatever. Like it's a different lens that I'm playing it through.
Right.
That the times that I'm actually able to sit down and just say, I'm playing this for fun with nothing like needing to be done for this, and just fully experiencing it has been less because of all the content. So I find that it's become harder to have those really memorable sessions for me because I'm just approaching it differently.
Right.
What the reason that I had the time I had a really, really good reminder of just how much fun this game was our live stream. Yeah. Because that was fully just me and Braden playing 2 players, which I had never played Marvel Champions with Braden before. And it had been a long time since I played 2 players. I do 2-handed solo to do testing and just play by myself. But playing with someone else, making their own decisions and seeing how they built their deck when I had no hand in it, was super, super, super fun. Like that reminded me just how much I love Marvel Champions and what it is I love about this game. Right. And it is one that, at some point I would like if they did a little bit less content and it freed me up to do, have more time to just sit down and play with people. I have one friend who bought Marvel Champions last year and hasn't played it yet because he wants me to teach it to him. Right. I think that when I am able to finally introduce it to him and play with him as 2 players, that might also reinvigorate, and I might find someone else that wants to play it regularly that way. So yeah, it's dropped 2 spots, but it's still very much a top 10 game for me. We do content all the time. I called Patchwork and Root my most played games. I forget that Marvel Champions probably is always my most played game because of how many sessions I do every month. But yeah, it's a great experience that is continuing to flourish and grow and have packs come out and expansions and everything. So there's never a bad time to get into it. Just don't feel like you have to buy everything that is out for it.
Yeah. Well, not a top 50 game for me, obviously, but I've had a lot of fun every time I've played it with you. Yeah. But I'm almost worried that I'm going to be less incentivized to go back to it, seeing all the extra content you have. Because, which character do I play? Let's build a deck. We have 1,000+ cards to pick from, right? Like, it feels like the barrier for someone casual to play with you is almost intimidating. But.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Coming in at number 8. So this is the highest game on my list this year that is new to me. So not only was it not on the list, but I only played it for the first time this year. I think you know what this is.
No, I don't.
No? We just played it recently. We just played it a few nights ago.
What was it?
I've only played it twice so far. Hansa Teutonica.
Oh, of course. You're right.
So this game I bought this game in early 2020. Obviously, there was a pandemic, and I had all kinds of plans to play this sooner, and it just kept getting bumped back. And then people would see it and see the kind of drab-looking artwork, just the kind of stern-looking guy sitting down at a writing desk with his quill or whatever, and be like, "There's no way that game could be fun." Yeah. I kept insisting, and finally, people gave it a shot. We've played it a couple times now, and there's not many games that make me feel this way on a first play, and if I had only played it once, I would not have been able to put this in my top 10 because I wasn't sure and I thought maybe there was something novel about it. But I'm so glad we got that second play in the other day because that solidified right there for me. Like, of any game right now, it's one of the ones at the top of my list in terms of what I'm most obsessed with, like thinking about it all the time, wanting to play it, just thinking in terms of what this game could be for me in the long run, in terms of like a game that we can replay all the time. You just have a map of the sort of Hanseatic region of Germany. I mean, the big box comes with maps of other places in the world too. There's a few different ones you can play on. But the game is fairly simple. You get 2 actions on your turn. I'm not going to explain all the actions in detail, but the basic idea is you're trying to create networks of trade routes between cities. And when you do, then you remove your little pieces that were linking the city to free up for other players to go there. But on your turn, some of the actions you can do are either like placing a piece on the board, you can move a certain number of your pieces around other places, you can displace an opponent's piece, but if you do, you have to spend an extra worker back to the supply, and they get an extra one to place on the map as a reward. So there's this really interesting shared kind of space where you're trying to get in people's way specifically, even if you don't want to go there, just because you know that they have to go there and they're going to bump you and you're going to get the reward for it. But then you're not accomplishing your own goals if you're just getting in other people's way. And I got actually very carried away with this last game because I felt like the other 2 players at the table, you and Kevin, weren't stopping Raj, and I kept thinking, well, he's gonna just get that thing. I was trying to stop everyone, and I got last place by so far, and I kept thinking like, it wasn't dissatisfying in any way to lose by that amount, because I just kept thinking like, okay, well, I guess next time I'll just try doing my own thing somewhere else and make people come to me and stop me then. And it's this, you never know, like, it just feels like the best move in this game is almost never obvious. Every turn I'm like, did I do the right thing? I don't know. So it just feels like there's so much left to explore in this game. There's powers you can get. And the main thing I didn't mention is those main 5 actions that you can get can all be upgraded. There's things you can do on the board and places you go where instead of putting a trade post in a city, you can take an upgrade for one of your abilities on your writing desk. So there's just so many ways the game can be played. It's so interactive, and not many games give me that feeling of like that tension where I'm almost... it brings out a competitiveness in me that doesn't come out in a lot of other games, where I look at the table and the trash talking that came up last game.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to do that to spice up the game. Like, I truly felt like sort of upset with some of the moves you guys were making, but in the best way possible, where I was like, I love this. It's it's such a very cutthroat game. I love it. I could see it moving higher on my list. This will probably be in my top 10 for a long time either way. Completely like just fascinated by this game right now, and can't wait to play much more of it over the next year. And we'll do a full review at some point, maybe a retro review or something on our channel. I guess it's not that old, 2016, but anyways, Hansa Teutonica.
Yeah,
only 3 to 5 players, by the way. It is not a 2-player game, and I don't even know if it would be as good with 3. But anyway, sorry.
No, that one play was really, really good for me. I think this is a game that I can say almost pretty confidently that if I were to play this more this year, which I imagine we will, it will be on my top 50 in some way, shape, or form, because sometimes you just know from a play that you're like, okay, that is so much of what I love about board games, or that speaks to me, or that gets me excited in one package. And that was the case with that game. It's just there were so many aspects of it, whether it's being able to choose which powers you're going to get and kind of adjust your style of play every time depending on what other people are doing or how you want to approach it, and just that like tactical decision that you're doing between like where you're starting to route, and then the fact that you can like I'm trying to link these two, and I can sometimes just do that almost as a bluff and then use the move action and move them somewhere else to claim something. Like I did that once or twice in the game, and that felt really satisfying to be able to have that flexibility in this kind of game.
Especially because people probably tried getting in your way somewhere, and then you just moved, and now they're stranded somewhere they don't need to be.
You always have something you can do, but so do your opponents, and that makes it so exciting in this back and forth tug of war style things. So
and you won in dramatic fashion on a tiebreaker, and it was an awesome game.
Once again, with our friend who always makes it seem like he's out of contention just to get everyone to forget about him. Oh, Dylan's got this one in the bag. Dylan's got this one in the bag. Like, why are you guys going for me? Go for Dylan. And we ended up, I won on a tiebreaker with him.
Yeah, that's the Kevin social engineering special.
I am on to you, Kevin. I've been on to you for a while. I need to get everyone else on to you. But it's a great game. I now that you mentioned it, I'm not surprised that's the one, but for some reason it wasn't clicking that that's the game. But such a good game.
Honestly, I'm glad to hear you enjoyed it as much as you did. I wasn't really sure if you would, but looking forward to playing it a lot more. And you'll be hearing a lot more about that on our channel in the future. So that is Hansa Teutonica.
Nice. Number 7 for me, down from number 5 last year, is Seven Wonders Duel. My favorite 2-player game. It is, it continued. I played a bunch of it on Board Game Arena. We did. I was in an AOSCB tournament. I played the physical version a couple times. Introduced it again to someone for the first time. It is just a really solid game that just continues to grow for me. It not grow, I guess it went down to solid. So I just mean like it continues to solidify its spot as like for me the premier 2-player experience. The way that the the pyramid of cards is laid out, and which cards end up being at the bottom of the pyramid to kick off the game and each round, and how that's going to kind of dictate the style that you approach, or how many resources you're going to have, or how easy resources are going to be to come by, or if there's a bunch of science tokens to start and you see that someone is going to have the opportunity to grab a bunch and really start to push the science victory, the tug of war between military victory, science victory, and points victory, and being able to kind of like push one or pull the other whenever something is getting away from you, is kind of like what we just said in like even like Santorini or El Dorado with like 2 players, where you can like someone's focusing on one, but you can kind of get them to pull off of that by doing something with the other. You're doing that with the 3 victory conditions in Seven Wonders of Duel, which I really, really love. I've had so many games where I feel like I'm out of it, and I say, okay, well, I'm just going to push military, and sometimes it's not to win by military. It's to get them to have to get their own military tokens to stop me, and that opens up opportunities for me to start snagging a couple cards and get it back into the game in another way. There's just lots I really love about this, especially at a competitive level as I played more of it. The expansions for it are great. Like both of them, I think, are such great expansions. I don't even know which one I like more. You can play with both expansions together, which makes it even grander.
And Pantheon?
Yeah. And like in many ways, I almost want like the physical version, unless I'm introducing it to someone for the first time, I'm always going to suggest we play with at least one of the expansions because they in many ways, it's not that they make it better because the base game is already really good for me, but it just makes it good in a different way, in a new way, and with Agora adding in another victory condition entirely. So yeah, I'm curious to see whether this is going to be a game that they continue to expand and continue to release expansions for, and it continues to grow, or whether they release another like edition of it, whether it's compiling the expansions, whatever. Like I think this game continues to have legs. I think there's a lot there they can continue to expand on or do different types of versions on, like how we kind of saw like Seven Wonders Architects as a different spin on the Seven Wonders formula. Maybe they do that with the two-player version. But regardless, I love this game, and it's gonna, I think, hold a spot in the top 10 for a while, unless some two-player game comes along that really trumps it. But
nice. I don't have a whole lot to say about it because we spoke in depth about this obviously when we did our video games we've cooled on, and I did mention some of the reasons why I've cooled on it. But I think that was mostly because of how much I played it. It wasn't because of any poor design or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I want to ask one quick thing about this because I've just thought about this for the first time now. So I noticed you've played a lot more Lost Cities than you have Seven Wonders Duel. You have the physical version of both, and they're both on Board Game Arena. Do you know why it is you've played a lot more of Lost Cities, even though you like Seven Wonders Duel a lot more?
I think,
or not a lot more.
I think the specific reason I played so much Lost Cities is I was trying to be or climb the ranks, and when you're climbing the ranks on Board Game Arena, you don't do best of 3, you just do one single game.
Well, it depends on the season. That season they had it as one, but okay.
But so I played so many games, but the games were quick. I mean, I was getting a game of Lost Cities done sometimes in what felt like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
like,
a single.
It was just
so it's just
quick.
specifically the speed of the game that makes it. Okay.
Lost Cities, I could be like in between meetings at work, and I could throw down a game of Lost Cities. Seven Wonders Duel, I have to feel like I'm like sitting down, and be like, I'm going to play a game right now.
Right. Okay.
That's really the only reason. It's just ease of play, time of play.
Okay. Yeah. Totally makes sense. Okay, number 7 on the list. In some ways, technically, this game wasn't on the list last year, but it's replacing a nearly identical game. So this is The Crew Mission Deep Sea. Last year that was number 10. It had just cracked the number 10. So this one has moved up 3 spots. A couple reasons for that. One is that I got to try Mission Deep Sea, which is definitely an improved version. And last year, I sort of hesitated by putting it into my top 10 because I played multiple missions. I think we played up to like 25 missions or something, but I had only played it in 3 or 4 separate sessions, and I think only with one group. I think it was you, me, and Braden playing as 3, and I don't think I'd ever tried it with anyone else at any other count. Right. But I did get to try Mission Deep Sea a couple weekends ago, and I think it was with 4 players, and it's clear, like it's not like a much better game than the original, but in my opinion, it does improve on the little things about it. This is the highest cooperative game on my list, the highest trick-taking game, the highest limited restriction game. It's my favorite in all those categories. I love what it does. I love the debriefing after the mission, whether you win or lose, trying to figure out where things went wrong or why someone, made a mistake and played this card. But because the rounds are so short, you can just set up and go again. It feels different every time, regardless of if you can play the same mission that you've just done, and it's still fun. It's not like a lot of these scenario games where once you beat one, you feel less incentive to come back. Yeah. There's something about The Crew that just feels like, I don't care if I beat it. The challenge is still there. It's not because it's not a puzzle that has one solution. So it's not like, oh, well, why would we go back to it? We know exactly how to beat it. No, you still have to do things based on the cards that are dealt and what tasks you get. The fact that you can be the captain and you have a bit more responsibility, and there's the communication token. You have that one message you can send hinting at one of your cards is every round. I just love everything about it. It's one of the best, if not the best, kind of like small box design out there, in my opinion. A game that I know it's kind of polarizing. I know a lot of people say like, what's so special about it? I don't get it. I don't really like it. And then other people say it's like greatest game of all time. Yeah.
It's group dependent too, so that could sometimes shift it. But when you find the right group and you're all on the same wavelength and you're coming up with like amazing strategies on how to win or figuring out the puzzle and how you're going to pull this off, it's some of the most satisfying moments I've had playing the game.
Absolutely, and that's it. It's the highs are highs, and the low can be sort of low,
Yeah.
but in a good way that makes you want to just come back and play it again right away.
Yeah.
And again, this is one of those rare small box games that we find sometimes we start playing it, and then that's where the night goes. You just play the crew for an hour or two when you really didn't expect to. So yeah, incredible game. If you haven't tried it, I think it's at least a must try for everyone out there. And it's like a $12 or $15 game. Like it's so inexpensive. Yeah. The Crew, Mission Deep Sea.
Awesome pick. I'm not even gonna say anything else about it because I've talked about it in my 20 to 30. And yeah, you covered it. Yeah, I'll reiterate. Mission Deep Sea is just better in every way. I think. I don't think there's one thing it does worse.
Yeah.
All right, my number 6, up one spot from 7 last year, and that is Biblios. Biblios is just a super mean game, a cutthroat game, and it's just so much fun to try to figure out how you're gonna win, and when you win with like 5 points sometimes. Like it's the idea that a game that's so simple and just based around pick a card and decide if you're going to put it in your own pile, in the second phase pile, or leave it for one of the other players is the crux of that entire first phase of the game. We've talked about how much we love 2-phase games. This is another one. You do that over the entire first phase, and in the second phase, everything gets put in that communal pile. You're using the cards you've acquired to essentially bid on those cards to acquire more cards. So you can kind of look at what you have already and say, what color am I going to go for specifically? Where am I light? How much gold have I acquired? How much do I think I need to acquire to beat my opponents? But on top of that, what ends up making it brilliant is the manipulation of the dice in the middle, and each die represents how many points each color is going to score. And so if you notice that I didn't acquire many green at all and Carlo got a whole bunch of green, that could end up meaning nothing if I have the cards to manipulate dice and I put that down to a single point, because you could do all this stuff with green and get it 1 point for it, and that 1 point will get you nowhere sometimes.
Yes.
Right? So the idea that you are always somewhat in control of how to kind of swing the game back in your favor and how to take advantage of the situation in different ways. You don't get colors, you get dice. You don't get dice, you can go after the colors. Like someone else increases red to 5, well, I will now try to push for red because that's the one that's valuable. It's a quick playing game that has so much decision making that ends up with everyone around the table going, oh my God, and just like agonizing over everything.
Another one of those 2-phase games too that we mentioned we love, right?
Two-phase games, hand management games, like there's certain genres that we just absolutely adore. But yeah, it is just a game that I only played a couple times this year, and again, even just from a couple, continuous plays, it moved up a spot because it reminds me how much I love this game, and that every time I've left a session of Biblios, it's always left a super positive impact on me, and usually with the people that have either played it for the first time or are playing it for like their second or third time or whatever. So. Yeah.
And because of the kind of like people who haven't played it before, the name and the box art, it kind of looks like you don't know what to expect. It kind of looks a little drab.
It's like Battle Line in that respect a little bit.
But every time you play it with someone, they're like, man, this game is really good. We got to play this again. Yeah. So yeah, amazing game. I don't have much else to say. It was in my 30s. I think I had it at 35 or something. It dropped a little bit this year, but still one of the best small box games out there. And yeah, I'll probably buy my own copy of this one day. Yeah, amazing game.
Biblios 6.
Okay, my number 6 game moved up 3 spots from number 9 last year, and last year was pretty, well, I guess new to the list. It was the first time we did our top 50, but it was kind of a new to me game at the time, and that is Renature.
Oh, wow.
So this is a game that even last year when we did our rankings, I remember hesitating about putting it in the top 10. I thought it was pretty new to me, and I thought maybe that was a bit of the kind of novelty, but I got to play it a bunch of times this past year. The other thing I'll say real quick is when I did my top 10 games of 2020, I had this at number 2 behind Babylonia, and I waffled on it before making the video, and I knew I might regret it, and surely enough I do, because to me Renature is the better game now after multiple plays. But this game is absolutely mind-boggling what it does in terms of the simplicity of the rules, but the decision space that is created from it. It's a 2 to 4 player game that is basically a domino-based game where you have these domino tiles that have animals on them, and you're placing them on the board. You start basically at the top of this board, and there's this kind of cascading, trickling stream that goes down through these different little enclosures of grass or whatnot. And they get bigger. These enclosures get bigger and bigger the further down the board you get. And at the start, you can only place at one of these spots at the top. And as the game goes on, you're building further and further. And the further down the board you get, the more points there are to be had. There are opportunities to pick up these little cloud tokens, which I'll get back to in a second. But basically, you're just playing until everyone runs out of their pieces. Everyone has their own little player board with these trees that are size either 1, 2, 3, or 4. But one of the interesting things about the game is you have pieces not only in your own color, but each player has also pieces of this neutral color that everyone has. And that's a big piece of this game because on your turn, what you're doing is you're placing one of your 3 dominoes that the other players can't see what you have and which animals, but that's going to determine where you can go because sort of king domino style, you have to match up one of the sides of your domino. And you can technically also never place to a side that doesn't match, but we'll get that after. There's a wild suit and all this kind of stuff. You're basically placing a domino and then you're placing, or you can place one of your little tree pieces that's size 1 to 4 in one of the adjacent enclosures. You're going to score points based on what other pieces are there. When enclosures get closed off, the person who closed the enclosure is going to get a certain number of points, but whoever has a majority for their color in the middle is going to get a different number of points. If 2 players tie on the value of their trees, they're going to cancel each other out. So even if, let's say, 2 players were tied with a value of 6 and 1 player sneaks in there with a 1 value, those 6s are going to cancel each other out and that 1 player is going to get all the points. So everything you do in this, and you can use your cloud tokens to pull trees off of areas to change the value and the dynamic of the scoring that's happening there. You can use your clouds to change the wild suit that either restricts where your opponents can go or opens up more spots for you to go. You can spend cloud tokens to take another turn right away. You only have 6 of these throughout the game, and you really can only grab more at the very bottom of the board at the end. So there's just so much about this game I love. It's so interactive, so thinky. It has this awesome arc where early on, you don't really know what's going to happen yet. The game starts to open up the decision space a whole lot, and then near the end, you start to get this squeeze, and it's always, you realize too late. You realize, like, I can't have any places I can go anymore. I'm running out of turns. I'm running out of pieces, and it's just a game that takes play after play after play to start to master and realize how to play well. And it's a game that tests your patience, unlike many other games, because of those limited cloud tokens. And where do you want to make those plays with your big, valuable trees? We played it on the live stream, and this was, I think, one of the best viewing games, just in terms of the table presence and how well the game went. But yeah, my plays of this past year really solidified it for me. I know it's a game that a lot of people out there have said there's nothing special, it's been done before, but I feel like they might have been missing something. If you dismissed this game and never tried it, or you played it once and thought, what was there to it? If you're even willing to try it again or try it for the first time, I urge you to give it a shot because it's just an incredible game that I think a lot of people have overlooked and one that I think I'll be playing for years and years and years.
Are you disappointed that this wasn't on my top 50 at all?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised. I kept waiting earlier in the list, and then when I was looking at my top 10, I remember thinking, wait a sec, there's no way he has it this high.
I don't think I played it this year. Like, I watched you and Braden play it, and it was a great session to watch. You always liked him more than me.
Yeah.
But I do really like Renature. I just need to play it more and kind of remind myself either how much I do like it or just see if maybe it is a game that I just like and it's never going to kind of climb for me.
Right.
But yeah, no, I hear everything you're saying.
I think we mostly played it 2-player. I think we only played it once with 3, and I think that's where it shines most. Just for anyone watching, I think 4 players is the 1-player count I would maybe steer clear of, just because there's a lot of downtime and you don't get many turns. So, but anyways, Renature, amazing game. Highly recommend it to anyone.
All right, are you ready? Number 5, top 5 games.
Oh yeah, I'm ready. Sorry, that was.
But also, The King is Dead. Number 5, down 4 spots from number 1 last year, is Gloomhaven. So
I expected this to drop more.
Really?
You didn't play it for you.
Yeah, but I have 2 years of amazing memories. That's going to be a lot.
Fair enough.
I said last year that there was a good chance that it was going to be hard for Gloomhaven to hold on to number 1 because even though I have all these great memories with it, I am not playing it anymore. We've done everything in the game, and I'm a lot of what I love about it now is holding on to the memories. And yes, I do absolutely really love the gameplay and everything. So really, the only reason it's sliding down is because the campaign's done and we're not going to revisit it. I will say, because I'm not going to say a whole ton more about Gloomhaven because it's a game that has been talked about to death. It's the number 1 game on Board Game Geek, top 100, is that if Frosthaven ends up being a game that improves on Gloomhaven, in my opinion, especially kind of in the same way that Mission Deep Sea does on Quest for Planet 9, like if it just does Gloomhaven better with more stuff, with more interesting classes and everything, I will likely just kind of lump Gloomhaven and Frosthaven as a category together because I don't know, or I mean maybe they'll be separate, but regardless, I could see Frosthaven kind of like reclaiming, if not spot 1, like maybe 1, 2, or 3 or something. It's possible, but I won't know until I play it. But yeah, Gloomhaven, we have 2 years of memories. For anyone who hasn't seen our other videos, We played it for 2 years consistently with a group. We beat it out of the campaign on like most of the side quests. We played all the classes. We unlocked everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say we saw pretty much like
Yeah.
level 9, all the items.
Yeah,
like,
you played through Jaws of the Lion as well. Like it is just a really great game to meet around in the same way that people meet to play Dungeons and Dragons. This ended up being like my personal Dungeons and Dragons experience, as I didn't play Dungeons and Dragons growing up. It just is so much fun to puzzle out how you're going to use your cards which always have 2 abilities on them and also have an initiative, and also you have to use them in conjunction with each other, and also have to factor in monster initiative and player initiative and what order you're going to go, and sometimes that can completely derail what you're going to do or open up other opportunities for you. The design of the actual scenarios and like everything you're doing is just great, and like they only improved on it when they went to Jaws of the Lion, like and even the expansion Forgotten Circles like had some wild ideas in there too. Like they're having tons of fun with it because it's now become like the sandbox of like all this amazing stuff you can do. Like it's a D&D type system in and of itself that they could just endlessly expand on if they want and continue to create different content for it. So I love it. It's fallen 3 spots, but again, it's just because it's not being played anymore. But there is probably a floor to how far it would fall if Frosthaven turns out to not be better than it, because the memories I have are like I'm going to cherish for a long time. So
that's what I was gonna say. It's last year it came in at number 50. It's no longer a top 50 game for me, but yeah, it's some of the most memorable experiences I've had in gaming, and that card play system is so addictive and was by far my favorite thing of the game. Lots of great stuff about Gloomhaven. I just want to ask you, quick thing, make a prediction right now. What year will it be when this finally drops off your top 50?
I don't even know.
We'll probably forget to look back
especially
on this.
if
Like
Frost
2029, 2032, like when's this going to drop off the top 50?
if Frosthaven reclaims it higher and they keep releasing expansions like that Slingshot, maybe it'll never will.
Fair enough. I'm going to guess 2031 it'll drop off your top
2031.
50. Yeah.
Okay, so
9 more years.
9 years
until it drops off your top 50.
Bookmark this video.
I'm going to make a note of this somewhere,
Okay, cool.
All right, coming in at number 5 for me.
Yep.
And I'll say right now, there's not a lot of movement in my top 5 for this year. Number 5, still at number 5, the only game in my top 10 that I did not play since last year when we did the list, but there's no way I could have left this out of my top 5. That is Keyflower. We've talked about it on the channel before. I guess it's my second favorite worker placement game of all time. Incredible game that does worker placement mixed with sort of auction and bidding in a way that I've never seen in any other game. The artwork is beautiful too. Just the way the game looks is so kind of like, it looks very inviting. It has almost the Arboretum effect. You're like, oh, the seasons are changing. You're coming in on this boat and everything. And then it's like, yeah, but people are going to outbid you and, steal your workers that go, in their little, what's it called? Their little communities or whatnot.
Yeah.
But amazing game where you basically have workers of 3 different colors, red, yellow, and blue. There's other specialty workers that have more, that are more rare that can come out throughout the game. But there's going to be tiles. Everyone has their own little player area, and every round plays through 4 seasons, and every round there's going to be tiles up for grabs in the middle that everyone is simultaneously placing workers on the tile to use the ability, but also placing workers around one of the 6 sides of these hexagonal tiles to bid on the tile. So throughout the round, you're going to be able to take these moves, and once you put a worker of a color either on top of the tile or next to it, let's say I put a red worker, whether I'm bidding on it or using the ability, now the only type of worker that the other players or myself can also use the ability with or bid on is red. So you set the color, but now for someone to either use the action on it or to bid, they have to go higher than you. So if I placed 1 red worker, then they're going to have to place 2. But you can come right out the gate and place 2 or place 3 right off the bat just so that to scare people away to make the cost higher. But at the end of the round, whoever won the bid is going to gain those tiles into their own little personal section, which is going to stay in for the rest of the game. And any workers that other players placed on them or that they themselves placed are going to come back to that person's sort of compound. So, and you play over 4 rounds, but you got these end game goals right at the start of the game that you kind of have an idea of some of what might be able to be scored for at the end. Like there's common scoring that you know is going to happen, and then there's these private scoring tiles, but some of these might not even be built at the end, so you don't know if they're going to be scored or not. So there's this long-term strategy that you can craft from the start. There's different tiles that come up in different orders throughout the seasons. There's boats between seasons that give you a different influx of workers, and you have everything behind a private screen, so you don't know what other people have, and you're trying to remember, did they spend a lot of their yellow workers last round, or did that person pick up the boat that had mostly blue workers? There's so much to keep track of in the game, and it's like the looking around the table, outbidding each other, and then you can pass and think you're out of the round, and other players start taking moves, then you come back into the round because passing doesn't mean you're out, and suddenly people are like, what are you doing? You were done this round. Get out of here. Quit outbidding me. So, the management of the workers, the bidding, the worker play, I love almost everything about this game. It's just a shame we don't play it more because of the little bit of barrier with the rules teach, and every time it feels like we're teaching someone new and it doesn't play in as quickly as we'd like it. But anyways, Keyflower, incredible game, which I have a feeling you'll have something to say about either immediately or shortly, perhaps.
I won't say much right now, but yes, I'm glad it's still holding this spot. Even though you didn't play it, I thought you did, but I guess I played it with someone else.
I bought it and I tried to push to get it played a couple times, but it just didn't get to the table.
Yeah.
But it's a crime that we didn't play it this year.
Totally.
So that has to be a goal of ours for 2023.
Absolutely, at least a few times.
Yep.
Number 4 for me is the game that is debuting on my list. It was not on the top 50 last year at all, and it is slotting at number 4.
I think I know what this is.
And that is Modern Art.
Nice.
Modern Art is a game that wasn't on my list last year because I think I'd only played it once last year, and I liked it, but I really needed to we played it at the cabin. I needed to revisit it. I've since played it a few times. I need my own copy of this, and I just need to play this way more. Like this is one of the rare games that, because I don't want to talk about other games that are upcoming, but there are games I absolutely love that there are times where I will still turn down a game because of length or because of like complexity or who's in the game. Modern Art is one of the rare games that I don't think I'll ever get tired of, and I think that not only will I not turn down a game of it, I think I will continually suggest Modern Art as an option on nights like we can do that, or of course there's Modern Art. Like it's just an obvious selection. It's so good. The making bidding the entirety of the game with different types of bidding systems and fluctuating values on paintings that the players are controlling, and the variable ending and being able to end the game at specific times when it's advantageous to you, and how every round the prices of paintings change and fluctuate, and like it's just there's so many layers that it's even hard to. I can explain the rules here, but I don't think that's going to really sell what makes this game special. Like
You're right.
I think you have to experience the game and just know you're about to play the pinnacle of bidding games, in our opinion. And if you like bidding, if you like kind of like arguing with your friends around the table in that way, you're gonna love this game. And we did play this on our live stream, and I would highly recommend watching that if you want to see an example of it being played, because that really shows just the hilarity and the joy that comes from playing this game around the table with friends. It's a phenomenal game that I'm glad I finally have had time to fully appreciate, and I think it's going to be in my top 10 for a while now.
Yeah, I'll say right now, I think some people might have had a poor experience with it in the past, and I would imagine that that's because you probably played it with strangers or people you don't know well. Because it can be a group-dependent game, and I've heard people say, oh, there wasn't that much trash talk, it's very mathy and stuff, but every time we've played it with close friends, it's just unlike anything we've played, right?
Yeah, totally.
Cool. And my number 4 is also Modern Art.
It was 4 last year, right?
No, 3.
Oh,
so
it was 3 last year.
dropped one spot only. It basically, I won't say anything else, but it dropped one spot, and not for any, my opinion for it hasn't changed in the slightest. It's for many of the reasons you've said, the same thing. It applies to any situation. You can bring it anywhere. I'm always advocating to play for this game. For a game, and it's of the ones that are this high in my list, it's one of there's not many games in my top 10, I guess, that are that simple of a rule set, and I feel like, we've seen all the cards, we've seen, how auctions work, whatever, but the game is just so damn fun every time, and so thinky. It feels like you can never wrap your head around what is the guaranteed best move, or there's different ways to win and all that. So, it fell down a spot only because of a game that was below it moving ahead of it. That's really all there is to it, but I don't see this one leaving my top 10 anytime soon, and it's going to take a very good auction game to displace this as my number 1 auction game. I have Raw on pre-order, which is another Reiner Knizia one, which the reprint of it is coming in a few months, but other than that, I don't really know what else could take this place this high up as an auction game. So we've said enough. I really can't say anything else about Modern Art.
Number 3 for me. Up.
By the way, the fact that we had Modern Art, that's the second game on the list.
Second
we had the same
crossover.
Spot.
That's pretty amazing. Number 3, up 1 spot from last year, which was the number 4, is Castles of Burgundy. Castles of Burgundy went up because I played so much Castles of Burgundy this year. It also was one of my most played games, and playing that Castle of Burgundy as much as I did, should have been either the deal breaker or solidifying it as like a group, like just a pinnacle game for me, and it was the latter. I did not get bored of it. If anything, I was able to start understanding and like refining strategies on Castles of Burgundy, and like understanding when you get a certain board, how I'm going to play that's different than the last time I played. I started to get a better idea of like which yellow power tiles are going to influence the way I play, or which, if I grab one, how I'm going to change my strategy. I started to get better at like which territories I'm going to complete in the first round or in the second round, so I get maximize my points, and then which ones I'm going to hold off till the end. Like, I really, really love this game. It plays so good at 2, but I played a bunch of it at 3, and even though I think prefer it the most at 2, man, did I have a good time playing it at 3. And even I played it at 4, and I still really enjoyed it. Like, it's not my favorite player count, but it's just a really solid game. And I like tile placement games. I like games where you can kind of like chain this into this. It does that so well, where like playing this building is going to chain into getting another building, and that building's ability is going to chain to this, and then you're going to grab a castle. Like, it's hard to even like explain all the great things about it, because it's another one of those games that like looks really drab. Like that's the biggest knock I have against it, is the theme and the way it looks. Some people like it. It's not, something that's super attractive to me. But if you can get over that, and if you can sit down and play it, once you've played it, I think a couple times, and you start to grasp the strategy, and you start to see where the genius lies in it and in the design, I think you'll, at the very least, even if you don't like it as much as I do, I think you'll be able to appreciate what the game does. And it is a pretty special game.
Absolutely. I think we're starting to see this more and more with the games that are really high on our list, that you don't really get the ideal experience out of these games if you play them only once or twice, and you don't play them close together. And that was my case. Like, the Castles of Burgundy last year was nowhere near my top 50. This year it was like 55 or something. Like, I developed a new appreciation for this game over the past year, partly due to the tournament we had with our Discord members, and just playing it online more with you and stuff. And I just came to appreciate it, but I realized that it was only around that 4th or 5th play where you start to realize things about the strategy that aren't initially apparent, and just get better at the game, that it really starts to come alive. So I don't think it'll ever get like top 10 or 20 for me, but I feel like it's going to be close to my top 50 for a while now.
Nice.
It's an excellent game. I thought it was going to be at number 2 for you for some reason.
Oh, I considered almost every game in my top 5 almost at different spots at different points.
Yeah,
like
fair enough.
They moved around a lot.
Yeah,
so.
it's hard to place these games, obviously. Cool. All right, well, number 3 for me is the game that got me into the hobby, my gateway game, maybe my most played game of all time. Up 1 spot from 4 last year into number 3 is Carcassonne. Before I go any further, I will say right now, this is almost exclusively 2-player Carcassonne. It's probably 95% of my time with this game has been with 2 players. And if I was ranking this, I still really enjoy it quite a bit with 3, but like on a whole different level than with 2 players. And with 4 or with 5, it wouldn't even be in the top 50 for me. So this is really 2-player Carcassonne at number 3. Last year, I slid it down to number 4, partly because I hadn't played it as much for a while, and because of my initial sort of infatuation with modern art. And the reason why they flopped back is just because I was reminded this year that I haven't, maybe cooled is really the wrong word, but I thought for a bit that I was sort of like satisfied with where I was with Carcassonne, and that I wasn't really getting the itch to play it. And this past year, I've played a lot of games with one of our Discorders, Shadan, Chris, which is kind of that, along with some of the tournament we had again online there with our Discord, has kind of reignited my love for this game. But as a 2-player game, just base rules, no river expansion, nothing, just basic Carcassonne. If you're playing with people who are experienced at the game and know the ins and outs of everything, it's such a rich, interactive experience, because every turn is an analyzing, do I use this tile in a way that gives me points or sets me up for success, or is there more value in getting in my opponent's way and messing with them in some way? And the more you play the game, and the better you start to sort of internalize what the tile counts are, and being able to kind of just visualize spatially what can fit where and what point values or how things are developing, you start to realize little things you can do to block your opponents that were not apparent in the first however many games you play. And if you think you've seen everything that Carcassonne has to offer, I urge you to go watch a replay online of like Carcassonne World Championships. Watch a 2-player game, and you'll watch it and be like, I don't understand why they're making that move, or I would have never done that. And that should be right there the indicator of how much more strategy and depth this game has than I think most people give it credit for. And I totally understand that a lot of this is nostalgia, because I was 18 or 19 when I first played this, and it did get me into the hobby, and it's the only game I played for the first few years. It was an obsession, I think, actually, and I have I think it was in my, I can't remember if it was wedding vows where my wife mentioned something about Carcassonne being my first true love or something.
Right.
Like, it was kind of known in my group of friends for a while that like this was my thing.
Yeah.
Someone actually made me a birthday cake for my 30th birthday, and there was like Carcassonne tiles on the cake and stuff like that. So it's just been such an instrumental game for me, and a true classic that I feel too many people dismiss. Maybe because they came to it later and there were other more exciting games that had more bells and whistles, but this is kind of like the pinnacle of simplicity and just classic design for me. I don't know if it'll ever leave my top 10. It's going to take a long time, and it'll need some like hundreds of plays of games to displace this really. So.
Yeah. I haven't played enough to comment on it, so all I'm gonna like I enjoy my plays, but it just doesn't resonate with me the same way.
Right.
But so all I'll say is someone needs to get you a new box.
Yeah, that one's pretty faded.
You just need a new box. For a game that is number 3 on your list, you need a better cover.
Yeah.
Well, just replace the cover. That's it.
I've been thinking lately. I have a 15-month-old at home, and he's starting to be pretty like grabby about interact, like trying to grab everything around. So I'm thinking maybe I'll give him that.
There you go.
Copy of Carcassonne.
Let
him develop
young.
his love of Carcassonne very young, while I go get a brand new copy and keep
Yeah.
it safe on a higher shelf for when
it.
he's a bit older. But
I think that's a great
number
rationale.
3 game of all time for me, that is Carcassonne.
All right, number 2 for me, a game you spoke about. You probably know which one it is, and that is Keyflower. Keyflower actually moved up a spot from number 3 last year. I played it twice, once physical, and actually I might have played it twice digitally, so maybe I'll play it 3 times. But yeah, it's just, it's a game I don't even need to play to know how much I love it, but every time I do, it is a reminder. I'm not going to say much about how it plays because you've already covered it, but just the idea that the color that you're bidding with is kind of like setting the tone for what color meeples people can place on a tile or add a tile to bid, and then the fact that you start getting green meeples that are a color in and of themselves and can block people from stuff. That whole push and pull.
You
and
love
then,
the green meeples.
Oh, I love
You always
them.
wreck me
I
with those
love
green
them.
meeples.
And bringing those tiles back to your village, your city, whatever it is, and then being able to play on other people's as well, and just like having to take the movement action to move across to actually be able to like get your goods to different areas. There's just so much to love.
Upgrading tiles too.
Yeah,
about
like
that before.
there's so much to love. Different tiles are out, different in different games. So every game is a little bit different as well. You don't have the same expectation with it. I'm going to leave it there. It's just a phenomenal game that I was going to say a lot sometimes gets overlooked, and that's true, but we've also seen it in a lot of people's collections in our Collectioners series. And I've had people comment on YouTube saying, Keyflower is also one of my favorite games or whatever. So the Keyflower lovers are out there, but I think it even still doesn't get as much love as I was expecting, considering how much I love this game and how much we both love this game.
Yeah,
so.
and honestly, not a lot of people seem to talk about. I know it's weird because it's a top 100 game. I think it got a lot of popularity when it first came out, and then a lot of people forgot about it. But it seems like you either love it or you've never played it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So play it to see if you love it.
Yeah,
it's an amazing game. Okay, number 2 on the list for me stays right at number 2. Honestly, these top 2 games, I don't know if... I can't imagine anytime soon anything's going to top either of these 2 games. This one actually came somewhat close this year to jumping into number 1 just because of how much I've played it. That is Race for the Galaxy. So in terms of a game that almost exclusively just uses cards, to me this is like the biggest... like one of the biggest achievements I've seen in terms of game design, in terms of crafting a deck that seems like it's been play tested to death. Like I've played this game now upwards, if you count physical copy, the app, and Board Game Arena, I'm getting upwards of probably 800 plays or so, getting close to 1,000. Almost all just the base game, and the game still hasn't started to show any cracks to me. Like there's still aren't really any direct like flaws. Like yes, there's little things that help or prevent people from getting into it, like it's a bit hard to learn. There is a very steep learning curve even after you know the rules. Just play it one play after the other. Some of the icons can be just a little bit confusing at first, little things like that, but otherwise, I mean, the fact that with an experienced player you can play a game of this in like 5 or 10 minutes. When you're doing digitally, it's even less. I showed you. You didn't believe me.
Yeah, you proved
I proved it to you.
Proved it.
It was, I think, 2 minutes and 53 seconds. I played a full game on the app. I wasn't rushing. I think I lost by a few points to the AI, but like I remember you looking, you're just like, that makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
But like the amount of decisions that it crams into that amount of time, there's no game with that. Yeah, that decision space in such a short play. You get that initial, I love the combination too of the initial strategy versus the tactical decisions along the way. Right from the first turn, you have 2 starting worlds. You have to pick one to keep and the other to get rid of, almost like the mages. Same thing Tom Lehman does with Res Arcana. And then you have 6 cards and you have to pick 4 and discard the other 2, and you start from there. But which you might have all 4 cards might be cards you want to play, or 3 of them, but to play a card, the cost is discarding other cards from your hand. So you come up with a plan, and then you discard half the cards you plan to play and draw new cards. And now, well, these other cards are better, so I don't know if I want to play that card that I kept before. So you're constantly changing your plans throughout the game, trying to interpret what actions other players are doing so you can piggyback off of them. Yeah. Anyways, plays amazing at all player counts, no downtime. Probably the most replayable game I've ever played, and it's just, yeah, the game continues to blow my mind. Race for the Galaxy, what else can I say?
Yeah, this one doesn't resonate with me the same way, and I'm not entirely
this one breaks
sure
my heart
why.
a little bit.
I know it does, and I will say that if they ever do a re-implementation of it, that's like, I've said this before, like the Race for the Realm.
Yes,
they did it as like a fantasy themed
Race for the Kingdom.
Race for the Kingdom, and they did like a new iconography, and they just improved some of the things that I know are holding it back. It's possible that that's what it would take for it to click with me, and then I would end up loving that version. Then we could have a Galaxy versus Kingdom version or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, for whatever reason, it doesn't click with me the same way, but I do think it's a good game.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I know a lot of people I've introduced it to, it has fallen flat for them. It is very situational, but if you like it, chances are if you play it more, you'll eventually end up loving it.
Right.
Anyways, the game I'm obsessed with and will never get tired of. Race for the Galaxy.
All right, my number 1 game. Every single one of my games, my top 5, was at a different spot than last year.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah, or on Modern Art wasn't on last year.
I had very little movement in my 5.
Yeah. So number 1 game is, of course, you probably know what it is, A Feast for Odin. It was number 2 last year. With Gloomhaven dropping down, opened up the door for Feast for Odin to claim its rightful spot at number 1. It makes it even more interesting that we did Agricola versus Feast for Odin in the past. If you haven't watched the videos on our channel, because now that's both of our actually, I guess I shouldn't say what yours is.
Yeah, what do you mean? What game?
I don't know. What's yours?
Maybe it's fallen out of the top 50.
But yeah, Feast for Odin is just it's everything I love about games, not only board games, even video games. You just have this sandbox area, board, whatever, that you can take multiple routes to victory, multiple things you can do, multiple ways you can approach the game. I can play this game and I can decide I'm going to do a whole bunch of pillaging and a whole bunch of, going out and getting a bunch of sheep or whatever. Like, I can have a completely different strategy compared to the last time I played. I can get no island boards, or the next game I can get a whole bunch. Like you've had a game where you get a bunch of island boards. I have one where I get 0 or 1, and our scores are like not far apart, or like we're both in contention. Sometimes I've seen people neglect the polyomino section a lot and still be in contention because they got other boards and got a bunch of points from them. The fact that I still haven't played this with the Norwegians and it's my number 1 game is also a testament because of how much everyone says that it is like the right way to play this is with the Norwegians.
Yeah, once you try it, you'll never go back.
Exactly. Yeah, like I have the Norwegians. We just haven't played it yet. I'm going to be playing it soon. For sure, I'm going to be making a point of doing it. I think at that point, I mean, it can't climb anymore, but I think that if anything, it might help solidify it here for a while because...
That's what I was going to say. How is anything ever going to beat it if you still haven't tried the Norwegians in it?
I mean, like, I'm pretty fluid with my list in general, like, and I don't have the nostalgia tied to this one that I know you have with some of your games. So it is possible that if I just played a bunch of Keyflower one year, or like a game like Modern Art comes along and it really resonates, that I wouldn't have too much of a problem bumping things around. But I just know it is going to be tough because Feast for Odin is just a game that I love. It gives me the warm feelings. It has recent nostalgia in some ways, and I just love getting to the table and just figuring out how am I going to approach it this time, and is it going to work out for me, and how am I going to adapt to where my opponents are putting their Vikings and blocking spots for me. Like it's a great game. I love it.
Yeah, an incredible game. I won't say much about it. I had it at number, I think, 33 on my list, and I've spent enough time maybe doing some unfair criticism of the game in the past in defense of comparing it to my favorite game of all time, but it really is amazing. One of the most fun games out there to play, and worthy of its number 1 spot for you. Mm-hmm. So number 1 on my list is, of course, keeping its number 1 spot. It's been there for quite some time for me, and that is, of course, Agricola, which is my favorite Uwe Rosenberg game, of course. This is worker placement done in my opinion the best way, the most satisfying way. It's a game, it was one of the first games that I got into, like sort of after I got past Carcassonne and some of the other gateway games like Pandemic and Catan. Agricola was one of the very first games I bought and took a chance. I remember being very overwhelmed at first. I wasn't quite ready for that level of depth and complexity in the game, but I immediately fell in love with it, and I sort of had a group of maybe 5 or 6 friends who, in any combination over a course of maybe 3 or 4 years, we probably played 100 plus games of Agricola, and that was probably 70 to 80% of our gaming time for a few years was playing the same game over and over, mostly between 2 and 4 players. The version that I had, the old one, also went up to 5. But what keeps it on this list, because for a while I didn't play the game for a while because I wasn't seeing the friends that really liked the game as much, and I knew that you weren't a huge fan, and just, anyways, we were exploring other games out there. Yeah. But coming back to it a lot over the past year or two, it has reminded me, I really made a point to play it a lot on Board Game Arena. I tried the solo version of the physical copy a couple times too, just to see, like, is this really just nostalgia talking? But I was able to kind of identify a little more why it stays in that spot, and it's a similar reason why Race for the Galaxy is so high. Is I have this love of games with these complex card systems to explore, and I think a lot of that goes back to our love of Magic and stuff like that. Games with cards where you have private information that the other players can't see, and you can plan, but there's other information to look at on the board, and there's sort of conflicting priorities. And what Agricola does in a way that I haven't felt that level of tension and the kind of that sort of like alchemy, that synergy of mechanisms, in the way that the game with the accumulating resource spots that get more tempting, and, you know, how can I possibly let this person take 6 wood? Meanwhile, I'm supposed to play this card before a certain round for it to work into my strategy. So it's that you're at odds with the strategy you've made, having to come to terms with, I can no longer play this card that I told myself at the start of the game that I had to play because there's clearly a better move, but you're constantly having to reshuffle your priorities and reanalyze the game state because the importance of everything changes. Yeah. Anyways, I've said plenty more about this game in plenty videos before, so I leave it at that. But I'm happy I didn't sort of act too rashly and put Race for the Galaxy ahead of it, because the more I've played it, it's reminded me that it truly is my favorite game, and it's probably going to stay that way for a while. And I'm just going to keep buying more of the expansion card decks to just see more cards, because, again, that's what gives the game life and that longevity.
Awesome. Yeah, not a surprise. And yeah, if you want to see us compare now our top games of all time, we have a video, Agricola versus Feast for Odin. You can hear us debate them all you want.
It's a lot of fun to do that one.
Yeah.
So
that is our top 10 and the end of our top 50 board games of all time. I just want to take a quick second to just say thank you again for an entire year of All You Can Board. I mean, we are making this content, but we do it because we have so many people watching our videos that love watching us for whatever reason, and love hearing us debate and talk and everything, and that's what drives us forward. Even when we're busy, even when we have things going on in life, that's what brings us back, is all the comments and the joy and everything that we're bringing. And it's been an amazing year of content, and it's always a bittersweet ending because it's like another year closed, but now I'm super excited to see what 2023 is going to bring. We have lots of goals, lots of aspirations, and I just can't wait to see our community grow and do a lot more cool content, play a lot more cool games, and that's really what it's all about, right?
Yeah, and if you enjoyed this video and you maybe aren't familiar with the channel, feel free to go check out some of the stuff we've done in the past. One thing we do sort of pride ourselves on is like always trying to improve the channel. I think if you go back and look at some of our videos when we started in 2020 and compare them to now, you'll see we really have come a long way, and that's something we are proud of and always striving to improve. So if you even moderately like what you saw, consider sticking around for the ride and subscribing to the channel, because there might be, you know, better things to come. Not might be, I promise you there are much better things to come. We're improving our equipment, coming up with new ideas for content. So yeah, that's very exciting to us. And do you want to maybe give them a quick reminder about the Discord?
Yeah, like I said at the beginning, our Discord channel, the link's in the description. You can join our community. There are lots of people, lots of discussion going on. And if you're like our channel, you want to end up supporting us in a really small way, but in a big way for us, we do have a Patreon as well. The link's in the description. There's a couple different tiers you can choose from. We have some bonus content that we'll be posting there, and early access to videos, things like that, for supporting us. So
we'll actually have one follow-up video that's a Patreon exclusive that's going to be analyzing our top 50 in depth. So if you want to see that, consider subscribing to our Patreon.
Yeah, otherwise, thank you for watching our top 50, our top 10. Thank you for another year of this channel, and we will see you in 2023.
See ya.